Being a center-right politician, what are the values of center-right politics these days?
Well, I think these values that we share are first regarding family values as the base of society. A society that has to also be based on dignity of every single human being. A society that has to have an open economy, a free market economy where everyone has the same chances, where every people should be treated equally, and mainly that, as I said before, that each individual dignity is absolutely preserved.
What do you think is more important in politics, having a great knowledge or having a great charisma?
Oh, definitely I think having a great knowledge. Because any clown can have a charisma and then he can make a mess. Of course, charisma helps, in particular in this new media society, where people has also to be trusted, where politicians have to be trusted. But I think that it's the very important thing is integrity and its knowledge of the different subjects. And of course, although we don't buy, because this knowledge we can buy, you know, one can go to nice universities, very well-known universities like yours, and get this knowledge. Charisma you don't buy on the shop, but it's absolutely essential nowadays also to have this trust. But as the root, answering your question, I would definitely put knowledge first.
To what extent do you think the European Union is responsible for the migrant crisis and for the worsening situation? And what do you think should be done to cope with this major issue?
Listen, I don't think that the European Union is responsible at all for this crisis. In this crisis we have to see two things. First, we have the war refugees, and of course we feel extremely sorry for them, for the bad times that these peoples are going through, and through this we should really help them. But even refugees, particularly war refugees, they have to abide by the law, and in particular the law that was done to protect them. I'm referring to the 1951, then amended in 1967, a treaty on the refugees of war. And this treaty says explicitly, on its Article 31, number 1, that in the first territory, they don't even mention country, in the first territory where the life of a war refugee is no longer in danger, he has to register with the United Nations and he has to signal to which country he would like to go. And he has to wait there. So what we are witnessing is a break in this law, and also that some countries, some of them members of the European Union, others no members of the European Union, also did fail to oblige the refugees to fulfill these requirements. Listen, in the Syria crisis, the first country these people go through is Turkey, right? Turkey is a candidate member to the European Union, is a member of NATO. Isn't this a safe country? Yeah. So this is the first place where they had to be registered. Next, Greece, member of the European Union, member of NATO. Isn't this a safe country? I mean, and you continue, right? So, as a matter of fact, I think that we also have to be pedagogic, and in particular in a law that was made and accepted and it's signed by 146 countries, member of the United Nations, everyone has to fulfill his duty. But we have to think of another thing, is the fact that I just talked about war refugees. We also have the economic refugees. And even on this crisis, we estimate that above 70% of the current refugees that are coming are economic refugees and not war refugees. You know, a war refugee comes with his whole family, right? Because he wants to escape from the dreadful situation they are in. An economic refugee comes alone. He tries to establish himself and then later call for the family to come. Lots of them don't even speak a word of Arabic. But when I said lots, look, I said over 70% are economic refugees. And we have one more danger that we are going to face. We are not facing it today, but we're going to face it in a couple of years, which are going to be also, due to the demographic explosion, the environmental refugees, the climate change refugees. You know, I mean, desertification is a very serious problem that we are not tackling yet. Lack of water, lack of Arab land, and so on. So there will be this new category of refugees that we'll have to tackle with in the years to come. Look at Africa. Africa nowadays has 1 billion citizens. In 2050, which is 35 years from now, it's supposed to double this population. We already know the conditions that most of these people are living, so we can imagine what the years to come will be. What is the easiest, between brackets, solution? Let's create conditions in these countries to develop the countries there so that the citizens can have a proper and dignified life down there, right? Unfortunately, when we start this system, most of these citizens, they came also from countries where what we have are dictatorships, and dictatorships with the biggest kleptocracies in the world. So most of our societies also refuse to send money there because they know that they will end up in banks in Switzerland or in very nice villas here in the Riviera where we stand, right? I mean, so sometimes, and this that I'm going to say is extremely brutal, and I say it regarding, for instance, North Korea. You know, is it normal that when we see that mankind is developing, and in anthropological terms, I'm a medical doctor myself, in anthropological terms, all our most developed societies, we are growing up. I mean, I'm only bigger on this sense that you see you are much taller than me and the next generation. That people in North Korea, they are shrinking. You know, in anthropological terms, I mean, each generation is smaller than the previous one. You know, which doesn't happen in China, doesn't happen in South Korea, doesn't happen in Japan, etc. So, I mean, sometimes the conditions have to be so harsh that people say enough, you know, and get rid of those dictators that are, that are completely killing their lives, right? So this is extremely brutal. But of course, this is one side of the coin, and every coin has two sides. The other side is what we see on television daily, you know, and of course affects us all. Here in this conference, I mean, the images that we shared, I mean, one cannot remain indifferent to what we have witnessed, right? So it's a very important problem, extremely difficult to tackle. As I said, the very first reason for anyone to be in politics is try to give each citizen the highest level of dignity, but at least the basic human needs, and on one side. And on the other side, and here, for instance, I can quote a European politician that I don't share any political idea with him, or almost none. I'm referring to Prime Minister Cameron, because I am a federalist and he is Eurosceptic. But he said that the United Kingdom is ready to receive immigrants, but those that have fulfilled the United Nations laws, those who are in the camps somewhere, and these are the ones that he wants to take care. I mean, on the other side, I mean, for those who are war refugees, once again, and that took the risk of getting into us, of course, these ones we definitely have to help. We have to be prepared, and our societies have to be prepared, because about 2 months ago, 3 months ago, we start the process of screening every request, right? Even of those who are already in our European Union soil. And don't be surprised, and our societies have to be ready, because I think that these 70% that I said are economic refugees are going to be sent back to their countries.
Really?
Yeah, of course, because we cannot take them all. So we take the war refugees, yes, we take war refugees, as much as we can. But we are talking about, in the European Council about 3 weeks ago, has distributed 160,000. We know that we already have on our soil over 600,000, and we know that there are 4 million on their way. So, I mean, there is no way a society can accept that. Look, I mean, in Italy, you have an unemployment rate around 12%, I think, if I'm not very wrong. But the average in the European Union is 9.6, in the euro area is 11.1. I mean, you cannot cope with these figures. I mean, Germany, for the moment, as they have 4.7% unemployment, they can cope with that. Eventually, they even need some more immigrants. You know? And then there are the silent immigrants that are coming to the European Union every time. Last year, Poland got 1 million Ukrainian refugees. That's huge, and no one talks about that, right? Of course, we have to praise the countries in the immediate vicinity of Syria in this particular case, or of Libya, that are receiving so many refugees. It's, of course, when we know that there are over 2 million, 2.5 million in Turkey, that's an extremely heavy burden to Turkey. When you look at Jordan, you know, if you count the poor Palestinian refugees that are already in the second generation, plus the Syrian refugees, we have more refugees from, there are more refugees in Jordan than Jordanian citizens already, right?
That's impressive.
When you go to Lebanon, in primary school, there are more Syrian kids in primary school than Lebanese kids in primary school. I mean, and one cannot remain indifferent to this, but this is something that we have to tackle. And once again, I'm talking about war refugees, not economic refugees. For the war refugees, my position is that we should accommodate as much as we can, not to mean all, but this "us" doesn't mean only the European Union. This means a global, the global village that we live in. Everyone has to participate. And then, as far as the economic refugees are concerned, this is according to the needs that we have. How many can we harbor or not?